Can you imagine a car so powerful, yet so rare, that it almost vanished from the pages of history? The 1973 Pontiac Firebird SD 455 was the fastest Pontiac ever built, a muscle car that defied rising insurance rates, emission regulations, and the very idea that the muscle car era was dead. But why did Pontiac push forward when others gave up? And, most importantly, could you handle the raw torque that made it legendary? Stay tuned, because the answers will blow your mind. Now, the Pontiac Firebird was produced from 1967 to 2002. Originally intended to counter Ford's Mustang, the Firebird rolled out on February 23, 1967, only 5 months after Chevy's Camaro. Now, GM had already made a big impression with its Camaro, but the Firebird? It put a little bit of Pontiac flavor to it that would forever be etched in muscle car history. Let's back up a bit. Well, you'd be surprised, but Pontiac didn't actually set out to build a Firebird. They wanted to build the two-seater sports car using the Banshee concept, but General Motors halted that plan by arguing that it would interfere with Corvette production. So, what did they get? Well, Pontiac received a piece of the pony car cake and began using the F-body platform of the Camaro. And boy, did they ever take it to heart. This first-generation, Coke bottle-shaped Firebird had integrated bumpers and stylish rear taillights inspired from the Pontiac GTO. It was available in the hardtop as well as the convertible version, which made it one of the most thrilling cars of the late 60s. Now, if it was 1967 and you were going into a Pontiac dealership with about $2,666, you could drive home the base Firebird, which came with an inline-six engine of 165 horsepower. But if you were a true car lover, then you would probably prefer one of the V8 versions. For most buyers, they could not turn a blind eye to the 400 cu in V8 from the GTO, an engine that would produce 325 horsepower. Can you just imagine the sound of that engine roaring? Here's a question for you. In your opinion, was it correct for Pontiac to get involved in the production of pony cars? While some believe that the Firebird had it all, performance and looks, there are those who claimed it was a runner-up because the Banshee was canceled. What's your take? For 1968, Pontiac made a few improvements to the Firebird's engine selection that were noteworthy. The base 3.8-liter engine was expanded to 4.1 liters and putting out 175 horsepower with a one-barrel carburetor. The Sprint version of the car remained as muscular as before with 215 horses attributed to the use of a four-barrel carburetor. But that was not all of it. Pontiac replaced the earlier 326 cu in the 5.3-liter V8 with a more powerful 350 cu in a 5.7-liter V8 that actually displaced 354 cu in 5.8-liter and produced 265 horsepower. This is something that will definitely help when it comes to talking about a performance boost. The Firebird also saw some cosmetic changes. For 1968, federal regulations meant new side marker lights and a larger turn signal design. They also introduced a fresh air inlet system, making the driving experience even better. By 1969, a major facelift was on the horizon. The front end received a revamped design, though it skipped the GTO's Endura bumper. They even moved the ignition switch to the steering column, introducing GM's new locking system. And let's not forget the introduction of the Trans AM Performance and Appearance Package in March 1969. With only 689 hardtops and 8 convertibles made, it quickly became a collector's dream. What do you think? Did these changes keep the Firebird competitive against other muscle cars? In its first year, the Firebird lineup expanded to include the Firebird Esprit and the Firebird Formula. The Esprit was all about luxury, boasting a plush interior and stylish options, while the Formula offered a sporty alternative to the legendary Trans AM. You could order a Formula with almost all the same features as the Trans AM, except for those iconic fender flares and shaker scoops. Isn't it fascinating how Pontiac managed to satisfy different tastes? The base model for 1970 came equipped with a 250 cu inline-six engine that produced 155 horsepower. But for those wanting more power, the Esprit and Formula had a standard 350 cu in 5.7-liter engine, cranking out 255 horsepower. And if that wasn't enough, you could upgrade the Esprit to a powerful 400 cu in 6.6-liter V8, while the Formula had even fiercer options, including the L78-400 producing 330 horsepower and the legendary L74 Ram Air 3400 that packed a whopping 345 horsepower. Imagine the roar of that engine. Now, let's not forget about the 1970 Trans Am. The Ram Air 3 was rated at 335 horsepower, while the exclusive Ram Air 4 pushed out 345 horsepower, making it a beast on the road. If you've ever wondered what it would be like to drive one of these monsters, just think about that raw power at your fingertips. Moving into 1971, the Firebird saw some subtle changes. The fenders got a unique exhaust vent, and the interior was upgraded with new bucket seats that looked sharp and felt great. Plus, Pontiac introduced its biggest V8 yet, the 455. Available in two versions, the 325 horsepower and the 335 horsepower HO, it provided even more options for power-hungry drivers. Did you know that the 455 HO was standard equipment in the Trans Am? The 1972 Pontiac Firebird faced some serious challenges, but still managed to make a mark. During a strike that year, there was a real risk that the Firebird and its cousin, the Camaro, might be cut from production. Thankfully, the Firebird continued its legacy, albeit with some minor changes. One of the most noticeable tweaks for 1972 was the hexagonal honeycomb grille insert, which set it apart from the earlier models. It's like a signature style that gave the Firebird a fresh look while maintaining its classic appeal. However, the L75 455 engine was dropped from the lineup. The LS5 455 HO remained available for the Formula and was standard for the Trans Am. Pontiac claimed that the 455 HO was detuned to 300 horsepower for 1972, but the engine itself didn't change from the previous year. It makes you wonder, did they really hold back the power, or was it just a marketing strategy? But the 1973 Pontiac Firebird was a blend of bold style and necessary upgrades, marking a key moment in its history. This year, the Trans Am introduced two striking colors, Buccaneer Red and Brewster Green, which really made heads turn. Along with these fresh hues came a more modern nose bird emblem, a fun nod to the car's iconic heritage. For an extra $55, owners could go for the new RPO WW7 hood decal, giving their Trans Am an even more distinctive look. And let's not forget the larger Trans Am decals that matched the hood bird's color scheme, making a statement on the open road. Inside the 1973 Firebird, the vibe remained mostly unchanged from previous years, but there was an exciting new option, the horse collar custom interior. This feature included revamped seat coverings and door panels that added a dash of flair. The choices of colors were fairly simple: black, white, red, saddle, but at times buyers had the options to go for orange, red, or blue carpets. It is always pleasant to get that touch of individuality, don't you think? Of course, with the times in question, new rules and regulations appeared as well. The 1973 Firebird had to meet the new standard of safety and emission, which added more of steel in the bumpers and core support. It is a little depressing that performance matches the regulations, but it does indicate how the industry was progressing. Mechanically, the 455 cubic inch engine was standard in the base L75 and the Superduty LS2 option, which produced the power that fans wanted. Despite changes in the environment, the 1973 Pontiac Firebird, especially Trans Am, was a mighty car on the road. This year, the base L75 455 engine generated 250 horsepower at 4,000 RPM and 370 lb-ft of torque at 2,800 RPM. That sounds magnificent, but it was significantly short of the round Port Superduty 455 that churned out a massive 290 horsepower and 395 lb-ft of torque, making it a monster on the tarmac. Pontiac decided to drop the HO designation from the base engine, simply labeling the shaker scoop with 455, a nod to its iconic heritage, even if it wasn't functioning at full capacity anymore. Now let's talk about the hand-assembled LS2 SD 455 engine. With a power output of 290 horsepower at 4,000 RPM, this engine was something special. Its shaker scoop proudly displayed SD 455, indicating that it was engineered for performance. even if it arrived a bit late in the production cycle due to delays with the new EGR system. A cool feature introduced in 1973 was the radial tune suspension. This upgrade came with 15-inch radial tires that offered a more comfortable ride and enhanced cornering capabilities. Imagine driving this beauty around curves, feeling that combination of power and precision. That's what the Firebird was all about. Production numbers for the 1973 Trans Am were solid, reflecting its growing popularity. The L75 455 model saw 3,130 units produced with automatic transmission and 1,420 with manual. The special LS2 SD 455 option, which came at an additional cost of $550, had 180 automatics and 72 manuals made. With all these enhancements, do you think the Firebird solidified its status as a true American muscle car? It certainly seems like it, doesn't it? The blend of power, style, and innovative features made it a standout in a rapidly changing automotive world. What do you think was the most significant factor that contributed to the Firebird's enduring legacy? Now, as we said, it was in 1973 and 1974 that the Pontiac Firebird offered a powerful iteration of its 455 engine, known as the Superduty 455, aka the SD 455. This model was distinct due to its enhanced cylinder block, which featured 4-bolt main bearings and reinforced material in key areas for added durability. Although the initial plans for the SD 455 included a forged crankshaft, the production models ultimately used nodular iron crankshafts, along with several minor enhancements to improve performance. The camshaft story is particularly interesting. Pre-production test cars were equipped with the 480737 cam, which was designed specifically for the SD 455, but the actual production cars used a different cam, designated as the 493323, along with 1.5 to 1 rocker ratios. Notably, the pre-production models also had functional hood scoops, while the production versions did not, a decision likely influenced by design and regulatory requirements. Skip McCulley, a former special project engineer at Pontiac, shared insights on the SD 455's potential. He had hoped to achieve a combination of features that included higher compression, an ideal camshaft, appropriate jetting, and optimal vacuum advance. His vision included a compression ratio of 10.25 to 1 and camshaft timing of 0.41. Unfortunately, the strict emissions regulations of the time destroyed these ambitions, limiting the engine's performance capabilities. But given these constraints, do you think the SD 455 lived up to its potential as a performance engine? Or was it just a shadow of what it could have been? Now, by 1973, the landscape of the American automotive scene was shifting dramatically. Insurance rates for muscle cars had skyrocketed, making these beasts harder to insure and drive. With their notorious reputation as gas guzzlers, many automakers began to shy away from producing them altogether. However, Pontiac had a different vision. That's why they decided to forge ahead and create the iconic Trans Am for that year. And against all odds, it became a hit. Imagine the roar of the Superduty 455 engine. Everyone knew this engine was the stuff of legends, which made the Trans Am one of the fastest Pontiacs ever made. While it was based on the existing 455 V8, Pontiac smartly navigated around the strict emissions tests of the time. Thanks to a few clever engineering tweaks, the Superduty 455 only needed to undergo a shorter 4,000-mile break-in period instead of the full 50,000. This clever workaround allowed Pontiac to avoid expensive lab testing since the EPA already had data on the standard 455 engine. Now, let's talk numbers. In 1973, only about 4,800 Trans Am models rolled off the assembly line, and just 252 of those were the fancy Superduty versions. With muscle cars falling out of favor, this rarity makes the 1973 Trans Am a true gem for collectors. It's like finding a diamond in the rough. Have you ever wondered what it's like to drive one of these classic muscle cars? Sitting behind the wheel, gripping the steering wheel, and feeling that raw power beneath you as you hit the gas. The thrill of the open road and the sound of the engine revving create a mind-blowing experience that every car enthusiast dreams of. Stepping into a Pontiac Firebird Trans Am, Specifically, the legendary SD 455 was like entering a time capsule of American muscle. When you open the door, you're welcomed by an interior that feels both luxurious and sporty. The soft touch materials wrap around you like a warm hug, and the deep, bolstered bucket seats cradle you perfectly, making every drive feel like an event. But let's not forget, this wasn't just a plush ride. Pontiac knew how to blend comfort with power. The moment you grip that leather-wrapped steering wheel, you can feel the connection to the road. It's not just about cruising, it's about the thrill of the drive. And speaking of thrills, the massive tachometer right in front of you keeps you in tune with that roaring 455 cubic inch V8. The Firebird was more than just a pretty face. Its design and performance made waves in the muscle car scene, capturing the hearts of enthusiasts everywhere. In the late 60s and early 70s, it wasn't uncommon to see these beauties at racetracks, where their power was on full display. They were built to dominate the streets and racetracks alike, proving that muscle cars could be both fast and refined. The standard tachometer wasn't just a flashy gauge, it was a performance tool that kept you in sync with that powerful engine. And the available limited slip differential? That wasn't just a checkbox on a list, it was a feature designed to give you the grip and control you crave when taking those sharp corners. Pontiac understood their audience, drivers who wanted power and precision, and they delivered it beautifully. The way everything comes together in this car creates a driving experience that's hard to match. Imagine settling into those supportive, form-fitting seats that hold you snugly as you navigate twisty roads. The steering feels just right, it's communicative, allowing you to position the car with pinpoint accuracy. And let's not forget the sound. The thunderous roar of that mighty 455 V8 engine reverberates through the cabin, like a siren calling you to unleash its full potential. Can you feel the excitement? This isn't just any muscle car. It's a celebration of performance engineering. Pontiac took everything that made the Firebird an icon and layered it with refinement and detail, crafting a machine that embodies the essence of American muscle. So, when you think about the Trans Am, what comes to mind? Is it the power, the handling, or that irresistible engine sound? Now, with new safety regulations in play, the Firebird had to bulk up, which meant the 1974 models came with heavy 5 miles per hour bumpers, making them tip the scales at about 3,850 pounds. That's a bit heavy, right? But don't let that fool you. These beasts still packed a punch. Now, the 74 Firebird had this sleek, shovel-nose front end and those cool, wide slotted taillights, giving it an aggressive look. Under the hood, you could find the powerful 400 for 155 or even the special SD 455 engines. Fun fact, a test of the SD 455 Trans AM recorded a jaw-dropping 14.25 seconds at 101 miles per hour on the drag strip. Can you imagine that roar? But the Firebird's cultural impact goes beyond just specs. Think of Jim Rockford from the Rockford Files. He drove a 74 Firebird, capturing the hearts of viewers everywhere. Even when they switched to newer models, he stuck with the 78 because he didn't like the 79's redesign. How cool is that? It made the Firebird a symbol of rebellion during that era. But what about the special editions? Well, the Firehawk was Pontiac's ultimate blend of muscle and performance, making waves in the early 90s. Let's start with the 1992 model, which was no ordinary Firebird. SLP Engineering, based in Toms River, New Jersey, took the Formula 350 and turned it into a beast. With over 350 horsepower and 390 lb-ft of torque, this Firehawk was packing more power than ever seen in a Firebird. And guess what? It even borrowed the Corvette ZR1 6-speed transmission. If you were lucky enough to afford the $40,000 price tag and an extra $10,000 for a street racing upgrade featuring Ferrari F40 brakes, you had one of the fastest production Firebirds ever. But here's the catch. Only 25 of these were sold, and just 2 of the race models. So, if you ever come across a 92 Firehawk, you're looking at one rare gem, a true third-generation legend. Fast forward to 1993, and the Firehawk kept its flame burning bright with continued production. It now boasted 300 horsepower, and by 1994, optional suspension and exhaust upgrades cranked it up to 315 horsepower. Pontiac even let you choose between T-top coupes and convertibles starting in 1995. Perhaps the crown jewel came in 1997 with the introduction of the LT4 Firehawk, rocking a 330 horsepower V8 straight from the Corvette. Only 29 of these were ever made, making them some of the most sought-after Firehawks today. By 2002, the final Firehawks were delivering up to 345 horsepower with the iconic Blackwing intake, and the 10th anniversary edition stood out in black with gold accents. What do you think? Was the Firehawk the ultimate evolution of the Firebird? In 1994, Pontiac offered a special Trans Am GT package, but you'd never know it by just looking at the car. There were no extra badges, graphics, or anything to set it apart from the base Trans Am. So, what made the GT unique? It came with beefier 245 and 50 ZR16 tires, a 155 miles per hour speedometer, and a higher top speed limit compared to the base model, which only had a 115 miles per hour speedo and smaller tires. The GT package also gave drivers the option to choose between a coupe, T-top, or convertible, and it could be paired with either a manual or automatic transmission. Interestingly, most of the 1994 Trans Ams were built with the GT package, making it a bit of a hidden gem for that model year. By 1995, Pontiac dropped the GT package, making all its features standard on the Trans Am, and the GT name became history. Fun fact, if you ever see a title or registration with GT listed for one of these early 4th-gen Trans Ams, it's probably because the VINs didn't specify packages like the GT or Firehawk, only the engine type. 1994 was also the year Pontiac celebrated the Trans Am's 25th anniversary with a special edition. It was a tribute to the original 1970 model, decked out in white with a dark blue racing stripe down the middle. It came with white leather seats, matching door trim, and 16-inch white painted alloy wheels. A truly iconic look. Pontiac didn't stop there. In 1999, for the 30th anniversary, they rolled out another edition with blue anodized wheels, twin stripes, and an aggressive WS6 performance package. Do you think Pontiac hit the mark with these anniversary editions? What's your favorite Trans Am? In 2002, Pontiac celebrated the end of an era by releasing the collector's edition Trans Am. Available as a WS6 convertible or T-top coupe, it stood out with its bold yellow paint and twin black stripes running from the hood to the tail. The car was further enhanced with black painted 5-spoke, 17-inch alloy wheels and black trim body details, giving it a distinctive and sleek look. This final edition was a fitting tribute to the Firebird, marking the end of its production run that had spanned over 3 decades. So, do you think the Pontiac GTO truly started the muscle car era? The legacy of cars like the Trans Am shows just how important these vehicles are in American car culture. With the odds stacked against them, Pontiac created a classic that continues to capture the hearts of enthusiasts today. Which feature of the Trans Am SD 455 stands out to you the most? Power, handling, or design? Do you prefer the raw power of a muscle car or the modern tech of today's performance cars? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys soon.